As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the small town of Milltown, I stood by the window of my new home, taking in the unfamiliar sights. The moving boxes still cluttered the living room, remnants of a life I had packed away and brought with me to start anew. I had hoped that this fresh beginning would help me escape the monotony of my old life, but the quietness of the house left me feeling somewhat unsettled. Suddenly, a sound cut through the tranquil evening. A child's laughter, bright and carefree, echoed from the nearby park. It was an enchanting sound that tugged at something deep within me. I looked outside, searching for the source, but all I could see were the silhouettes of children playing in the distance, their joyful shouts mingling with the cool breeze. I felt an inexplicable urge to go outside and investigate, even though I knew I shouldn't wander too far from the house so soon after moving in. "Come on, Lucas, it's just a laugh," I muttered to myself, wrestling with the conflicting thoughts in my head. Curiosity won over caution, and I grabbed my jacket, heading out the door. As I walked toward the park, the laughter faded, leaving behind an eerie silence that amplified my senses. The streets were lined with quaint houses, their gardens blooming with flowers that danced gently in the wind. I passed a few neighbors, but they seemed preoccupied, their faces etched with expressions that I couldn't quite read. "Nice day, isn't it?" I called out to an elderly man tending to his garden. He glanced up, offered a brief nod, but quickly returned to his work, as if my words had disturbed him. I shrugged it off, pushing onward, my heart pounding in rhythm with my quickening footsteps. Upon arriving at the park, I was struck by how empty it felt. The swings swayed slightly, the slide stood still, and the grass was untouched. I scanned the area, searching for any sign of the children I had heard just moments earlier. There were a few kids running around in the distance, but their laughter was absent. Where did that sound come from? I wondered aloud, my voice swallowed by the stillness. I meandered deeper into the park, drawn toward a secluded corner that seemed to beckon me. The trees loomed overhead, their branches intertwining like fingers grasping for something lost. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Hello," I called, my voice echoing softly. "Is anyone there?" Nothing responded except for the rustle of leaves. I felt strangely exposed, as if I were intruding upon a secret that was never meant for me to uncover. With every step I took, the laughter, now just a memory, echoed in my mind, urging me to dig deeper. Just then, I noticed a couple of parents watching their kids play nearby. I approached them, hoping to find some answers. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to sound casual. "Did you hear that laughter earlier? It sounded like it was coming from around here." The mother, a woman with a kind smile, turned to me, her expression shifting slightly. "Oh, the kids? They often play in the park. But I didn't see anyone just now," I pressed, my curiosity getting the better of me. The father stepped in, his voice low and guarded. "You'll get used to it. Kids have a way of disappearing for a bit. They find their own adventures. Right?" I replied, sensing the tension in his tone. "But do you know if there's been any, strange occurrences in the area?" The mother shot him a worried glance, then turned back to me. "It's a safe town, really. Just don't wander into the woods alone." "Why not?" I asked, slightly taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor. Her gaze dropped to the ground, and the father's jaw tightened. "Just stories, you know, old tales meant to keep kids close." I could feel the weight of their words, a silent warning that hung in the air between us. They quickly turned away, returning their focus to their children, leaving me standing there with more questions than answers. As I walked back toward the street, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Milltown. It was as if the laughter I had heard was a ghostly echo from the past, lingering in the air, waiting for someone to acknowledge it. I decided I needed to learn more about this place, about the children and their laughter, and about the mysterious woods that loomed just beyond the park. That night, I sat in my dimly lit room, surrounded by unpacked boxes and the smell of fresh paint. I couldn't shake the images of the park from my mind. The children playing, their laughter, the parents' wary expressions. I pulled out my phone and began searching for anything I could find online about Milltown, hoping to uncover some history that would shed light on the strange atmosphere that seemed to envelop the town. My search yielded little information. Most of the results were generic articles about the town's founding and its small-town charm. But then I stumbled upon a forum thread titled Milltown, the town with secrets. My heart raced as I clicked on it, eager to read what others had shared. The post spoke of strange occurrences, whispers of children who had gone missing over the years, and an unspoken pact among the townsfolk to keep the past buried. A chill crept through my spine as I absorbed the comments, each one adding to a mounting sense of unease. "Stay away from the woods," one user wrote. "Trust me, you don't want to know what's out there. Don't ask too many questions. The town has a way of protecting its secrets," another warned. I felt a mix of fear and determination swirling within me. I couldn't just ignore these stories. There had to be a reason behind the laughter I had heard, and I was determined to uncover it. As the days passed, I found myself returning to the park, each time hoping to catch a glimpse of the children or perhaps hear that laughter again. I spoke to a few more residents, but they all seemed to skirt around the topic, their eyes clouded with something that resembled fear. Why is everyone so tight-lipped? I thought, frustration gnawing at my insides. One afternoon, as I leaned against a park bench, I noticed a little girl playing near the swings. Her laughter rang out, pure and innocent, and for a moment, it felt like a balm over my restless thoughts. I watched her, captivated by her joy, until a shadow passed over her face. She glanced toward the trees, her smile faltering for a brief moment before she resumed playing. I approached her, kneeling down to her level. "Hey there, what's your name?" She looked at me, eyes wide and curious. "I'm Mia. Do you want to play?" "Sure, Mia. Do you come here often?" She nodded, her hair bouncing as she giggled. "Yeah, but sometimes I hear funny sounds over there." She pointed toward the woods. "Funny sounds?" I echoed, intrigued. "Yeah, like laughing and whispering. It's kinda spooky." I felt a shiver run down my spine, but I maintained a friendly smile. "Have you ever gone into the woods?" Her face scrunched up as if considering my question. "No, Mommy says not to go there alone." "Smart girl," I said, forcing a chuckle. "You should always listen to your mommy." Just then, a woman approached, presumably Mia's mother. She looked at me with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. "Thank you for talking to her," she said, her voice tight. "Of course. She's a bright one," I replied, standing up. "I was just curious about the woods. Is there something we should know?" The mother's expression darkened. "There are just stories. Best to leave the past where it is." I watched as she took Mia's hand and led her away, but not before the little girl turned back to me, her eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. "Maybe you'll hear the laughing too," she called out, her voice ringing out like a bell. I stood there, rooted to the spot, as the mother hurried them away. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park. I couldn't shake the feeling that Mia's innocent laughter was somehow connected to the mysteries of Milltown. With a resolve that felt almost desperate, I decided to dig deeper. I needed to know what those stories were, what the laughter meant, and why the town's residents were so unwilling to share. There had to be someone out there who knew the truth. As I made my way home, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the town's secrets pressing down on me. The laughter from the park lingered in my mind, echoing like a haunting melody. I understood now that I was no longer just a newcomer in Milltown. I was drawn into a mystery that had been waiting for someone to unravel it, and I was determined to be that person, no matter where the path might lead me. As moving boxes lay scattered around the rooms of my new house, remnants of a hasty relocation, I stood by the window, the late afternoon sun casting a warm glow on my face as I took in the unfamiliar surroundings. The neighborhood felt quiet, almost too quiet, until a sound broke the stillness, a child's laughter. It echoed from the nearby park, a bright, innocent sound that tugged at something deep within me. I felt an inexplicable urge to investigate, despite the nagging voice in my head warning me that my curiosity could lead to trouble. With a quick glance at my watch, I decided to ignore the caution. I slipped on my sneakers and headed outside, the laughter still ringing in my ears. As I walked towards the park, a mix of excitement and unease bubbled within me. What child was laughing alone in a park? Wasn't it too late for that? I arrived at the park, my heart racing with anticipation, only to find it eerily empty. The swings swayed gently in the breeze, and the slide stood silent against the backdrop of the evening sky. Yet, the laughter persisted, echoing from a remote corner of the park. I scanned the area, my eyes darting from one group of children to another. They were playing tag, their giggles mixing with the fading light, but none of them seemed to be the source of that haunting laughter. I felt a chill run down my spine as I moved further into the park, drawn towards the isolated grove of trees at the far end. The laughter seemed to beckon me, and I couldn't resist its call. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling slightly. "Is anyone there?" Silence enveloped me, save for the rustling leaves overhead. I took a hesitant step forward, my instincts screaming at me to turn back. But I pressed on, curious and desperate for answers. As I reached the grove, the laughter faded, leaving an unsettling quiet in its wake. I stood there for a moment, the shadows of the trees stretching out like fingers, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I left the park with a sense of urgency gnawing at me. I needed to know more, to uncover the mystery behind that laughter. The townsfolk might have answers, but when I approached them, I quickly realized I was met with reluctance and avoidance. "Excuse me?" I asked an elderly woman tending to her garden. "Did you hear that laughter in the park? There's a girl missing, isn't there?" She paused, her hands stilling in the soil as she glanced up at me, her eyes narrowing. "It's best not to ask about that, dear," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Some things are better left alone." Her dismissive tone stung, and I turned away, frustration boiling within me. I approached a group of men sitting on a porch, hoping for a more open conversation. "Hey, do you know about a girl named Jamie?" I heard she disappeared. They exchanged uneasy glances, and one of them, a burly man with a thick beard, sneered and said, "You should mind your own business, kid. The past is the past for a reason." I gritted my teeth, my determination only growing stronger. Couldn't let it go. I needed to find someone who would talk, someone who knew what had happened. I wandered the streets of Milltown, my mind racing with thoughts of Jamie and the laughter that haunted me. That's when I stumbled upon a small, quaint shop nestled between two larger buildings. The sign above read Dona Elvira's Antiques. Intrigued, I pushed the door open, a small bell jingling above my head as I stepped inside. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and forgotten memories. Shelves lined with dusty trinkets and faded photographs surrounded me. "Welcome, dear," a voice called out from behind the counter. I turned to see an elderly woman with silver hair tied in a bun, her eyes twinkling with a knowing gleam. "What brings you here?" "I'm looking for information about a girl named Jamie," I confessed, my heart racing. "I heard she disappeared, and I'm trying to find out more." Dona Elvira's expression shifted, her smile fading slightly. "Ah, Jamie, a tragic story indeed. But you must understand, my dear, some things are better left undisturbed. Please," I urged, feeling a connection to her, as if she understood the weight of my curiosity. "I need to know. I keep hearing this laughter, and I feel like there's something more to it." She studied me for a moment, then sighed. "There's an old diary. It belonged to Jamie's mother. It holds secrets of this town, but I must warn you, the truths it contains are not for the faint of heart." My heart raced at the prospect of uncovering more. "Can I see it?" "I promise I won't tell anyone." Dona Elvira hesitated, her fingers tapping on the counter. "Very well," she finally said, "but you must promise to keep this between us. The townsfolk are protective of their memories, and the past is a delicate thing." I nodded eagerly as she turned to retrieve the diary from a locked drawer. She returned with a worn leather-bound book, its cover cracked with age. As she handed it to me, I felt a shiver run down my spine. Be careful with it. The stories within are intertwined with our present. I opened the diary, the pages yellowed and fragile. As I began to read, my heart sank. The entries spoke of laughter, games, and a once vibrant community, but they quickly turned darker. Mentions of missing children, whispered fears, and a haunting melody filled the pages. The laughter I had heard echoed in my mind, the connection between the past and present growing clearer. Dona Elvira, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. These entries, they talk about other children who disappeared. This town has a pattern of tragedies. Her gaze intensified. Yes, dear, it's a cycle that haunts us. Many prefer to forget, to bury the past. But you must understand, Jamie's case is different. Her laughter lingers, as if it seeks something. What do you mean? I pressed, my curiosity piqued. I believe her spirit still roams these streets, searching for closure. Dona Elvira replied, her voice trembling slightly. And you may be the one who can help her. I closed the diary, my mind racing with possibilities. What can I do? How can I help? Dona Elvira leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You must find the connection between the laughter and the past. The answers lie within these pages and the memories of this town. But be warned, dear, not everyone will want you to succeed. I nodded, determination coursing through me. I couldn't turn back now. The laughter, the missing children. It was all intertwined, and I felt an urgency to uncover the truth that had eluded Milltown for far too long. As I left the shop, the weight of the diary in my hands felt like a promise, a commitment to the memory of Jamie and the laughter that still echoed in the shadows. As sunlight filtered through the dusty curtains of my new room, I stood by the window, trying to take in the unfamiliar view of Milltown. It was a small town, the kind with quaint houses and whispering trees lining the streets. But something about this place felt off, almost as if it held secrets just beneath the surface. It was then that I heard it, a child's laughter, light and carefree, echoing from the park nearby. I felt a strange pull towards the sound, an almost magnetic urge to investigate, despite knowing I should probably unpack my boxes instead. Before I could think too much about it, I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside, the cool air hitting me as I made my way towards the park. The laughter floated through the air, sweet and enchanting, and I felt a mixture of excitement and unease. Upon arriving, I found the park nearly empty, save for a few children playing on the swings and slides. Yet, the laughter persisted, resonating from a hidden corner of the park. I scanned the area, my heart racing with curiosity. Where's that coming from? I muttered to myself, squinting into the shadows of the trees. Determined to find the source, I approached a group of parents sitting on a bench, sipping coffee and chatting. Excuse me, I said, my voice wavering slightly. Do you know where that laughter is coming from? They exchanged uneasy glances, their smiles fading. Oh, it's just kids playing. One of them replied dismissively, looking away as if the topic was too sensitive. Yeah, kids love the park, another added quickly, as if they were afraid to delve deeper into the subject. I could feel my curiosity intensifying, and the hint of something darker in their eyes made me uneasy. What about the girl who went missing? Jamie? I heard her name mentioned in town. Do you know anything about it? The laughter dimmed suddenly, as if the park itself had taken a breath. The parents stiffened, and I could sense the tension in the air. You shouldn't really be asking about that, one of them said, a warning in his voice. There are things best left forgotten. I felt a chill creep down my spine. But she's just a child. How can you just forget? I pressed, my frustration boiling over. Some stories are too painful, another parent finally said, their voice barely above a whisper. Just let it be, kid. I left the park feeling unsettled, my mind racing with unanswered questions. That laughter, that connection to Jamie, gnawed at me. I needed to know more. As I wandered back to my new house, I recalled the old antique shop I had passed earlier. Perhaps there, I could find someone who might shed some light on the mystery. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped into Dona Elvira's shop, the scent of aged wood and forgotten memories enveloping me. Shelves were lined with trinkets and curiosities, each one appearing to hold a story of its own. I spotted Dona Elvira behind the counter, her silver hair tied in a neat bun, her eyes sparkling with a knowing glint. "Ah, a new face in town," she said warmly, her voice like honey. "What brings you here, dear?" "I'm Lucas." I introduced myself, my voice steadying as I spoke. "I just moved in, and I've been hearing about a girl named Jamie who went missing. I'm trying to learn more about her." Dona Elvira's expression shifted, the warmth fading slightly. "That's a heavy topic for someone so young," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "What you seek might be better left undisturbed." "I can't just ignore it," I replied, my determination clear. "I need to know what happened." She studied me for a moment, then sighed, as if a weight had settled on her shoulders. "Very well, but promise me you won't speak of this to anyone else. The town has its secrets, and some are best kept hidden." "I promise," I said, my heart racing with anticipation. Dona Elvira led me to a back room, where she pulled out an old, leather-bound diary. "This belonged to Jamie's mother," she explained, her fingers gently brushing over the cover. "It holds memories that the town would rather forget." As I took the diary in my hands, I felt a surge of emotions wash over me, a mixture of sadness and hope. Flipping through the pages, I discovered entries filled with love and joy, but also shadows of despair. There were mentions of Jamie and then other children. The more I read, the more I realized the town had a pattern of tragedies that seemed to repeat over the years. "Dona Elvira," I said, my voice trembling with urgency. "What happened to those other children?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with a depth of sorrow. "They were taken, Lucas. One by one, they vanished, leaving only echoes of their laughter behind." I felt the weight of her words pressing down on me. "This can't be happening again," I murmured, my mind racing. "I have to do something." Just then, the bell above the door jingled again, and I turned to see a girl my age standing there. She had striking features, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. "Hey, I'm Sarah," she said, her gaze flicking between me and Dona Elvira. "I heard you talking about Jamie. I need to know too. Do you know something?" I asked, my heart racing. Sarah hesitated, biting her lip. "I've heard rumors about a group of kids who used to hang out in the woods. They disappeared, and there was supposedly a birthday party that ended badly. But no one talks about it." "A birthday party?" My mind reeled at the thought. "Do you know where it happened?" "I think I might," she replied cautiously. "There's an old hideout in the woods that some kids used to go to. Maybe it's connected to the stories. We could check it out together." I exchanged a glance with Dona Elvira, who looked concerned yet intrigued. "Be careful," she warned. "The past has a way of catching up with us." With Sarah by my side, I felt a surge of determination. "Let's go," I said, the thrill of the unknown beckoning us forward. As we left the shop, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the brink of uncovering something monumental. The laughter that had drawn me outside that first day now felt like a distant memory, but I knew it was still there, lingering just out of reach. And with Sarah's help, I was ready to chase it down. The woods loomed ahead as Sarah and I ventured deeper, guided by the clues from the diary we had discovered at Dona Elvira's shop. The sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor, yet an unsettling chill hung in the air. I could feel the tension building within me, a mix of excitement and dread. The stories we had heard about the vanished children echoed in my mind, and the laughter that had haunted me since moving to Milltown rang faintly in my ears. "Are you sure we're on the right path?" Sarah asked, glancing back at me, her brow furrowed with concern. "According to the diary, we should be close," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "It mentions a hidden place, a sanctuary where the kids used to gather." We continued walking, the crunch of leaves underfoot breaking the otherwise serene silence. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the shadows grew longer, and I could feel the atmosphere thickening around us. A sense of urgency urged us forward. "Look!" Sarah exclaimed suddenly, pointing toward an overgrown path that veered off to the left. "Do you think it could lead us to the hiding spot?" I nodded, my heart racing. "Let's check it out." As we followed the narrow path, I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being watched. The whispers of the wind seemed to carry the echoes of children's laughter, mixed with an undercurrent of something darker. I shivered, trying to push the thoughts aside. This was just a forest, I told myself, just a place where kids used to play. When we finally emerged into a small clearing, I was struck by what we found. The air was thick with nostalgia, and remnants of the past lay scattered around us. Old toys, faded drawings clinging to the bark of trees, and even a rusted swing set, swaying slightly as if still touched by the laughter of children long gone. "This place, it feels like a graveyard for memories," Sarah murmured, stepping cautiously forward. "It feels more like a shrine," I replied, moving closer to inspect a tattered teddy bear half buried in the leaves. Like they were trying to keep something alive here. We began to explore the clearing, sifting through the remnants of childhood. I found a small wooden box, intricately carved but covered in dirt. As I wiped it clean, I realized it was a music box. My fingers trembled as I turned the key, and a sweet, haunting melody filled the air, wrapping around us like a warm blanket. "That's beautiful," Sarah said, her eyes wide as the music danced through the clearing. But just as quickly as the warmth enveloped us, an inexplicable chill settled in the pit of my stomach. Suddenly, a soft giggle floated through the air, distinct and unmistakable. My heart raced. "Did you hear that?" I asked, clutching the music box tightly. "Hear what?" Sarah responded, her brow furrowed in confusion. "That laugh," I insisted, scanning the area around us. It sounded like Jamie. A flicker of doubt crossed her face. "Lucas, we're alone here. It's just us." But I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't as alone as we thought. "It came from over there," I said, pointing toward a thick cluster of trees at the edge of the clearing. "Let's check it out," Sarah suggested, though there was an edge of hesitation in her voice. We moved cautiously toward the trees, the melody of the music box still playing softly behind us. As we approached, the laughter grew louder, ringing in my ears, a siren call that beckoned me forward. My heart pounded in my chest, the excitement mingling with fear. What if we found something we weren't ready for? What if we uncovered a truth that the town had buried deep? "There," I said, my voice barely above a whisper as I spotted a faint outline among the trees. As we pushed through the underbrush, I felt a surge of hope. Maybe we were finally on the verge of uncovering the truth about Jamie and the others. Suddenly, the laughter stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence that enveloped us. My breath caught in my throat, and I exchanged a worried glance with Sarah. Maybe we should go back," she suggested, her voice wavering slightly. "No, we can't back down now," I said, my determination flaring. "We need to know what's going on here." As we stepped into the thicket, the air felt heavier, charged with an energy that sent shivers down my spine. The trees seemed to close in around us, and I couldn't shake the sensation that we were being watched. "Lucas," Sarah's voice trailed off, and I felt a wave of apprehension wash over me. "What?" I asked, turning to her. "Do you ever feel like something's wrong? Like we shouldn't be here?" she asked, her eyes darting nervously. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. "Yeah, I do, but we have to find out what happened to Jamie. We can't just leave it like this." Just then, I caught sight of something glimmering on the ground. It was a small silver locket, half buried in the dirt. I bent down to pick it up, brushing off the grime. When I opened it, a small picture of a little girl inside caught my breath. Her face was familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Look at this," I said, showing it to Sarah. Her eyes widened in recognition. "That's Jamie," she exclaimed. "Then this must be her hiding place," I said, my heart racing. "We're close, Sarah. We have to keep looking." But as we pressed further into the thicket, the atmosphere shifted again. The laughter I had heard before was replaced by an eerie stillness, and I felt a strange sensation, like we were being watched, not by the spirits of the children, but by something darker. "Lucas, I really think we should go back now," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Just a little longer," I urged, though I too felt the weight of fear creeping in. As we reached a small clearing, I froze. In the center stood an old tree, its gnarled branches stretching out like skeletal fingers. At its base, a makeshift altar was built from stones, adorned with toys and trinkets, offerings left by children who once played here. "This is it?" I whispered, stepping closer, the air thick with unspoken stories. But as I knelt to examine the offerings, a sudden gust of wind swept through the area, and I heard it again, the unmistakable sound of laughter. My heart raced as I looked around, wide-eyed. "Did you hear that?" I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, but it's not just laughter," Sarah said, her face pale. "It sounds like it's coming from the tree." Before I could respond, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The ground beneath us felt unstable, as if the very earth was trembling with the weight of the past. "Lucas, we need to leave. Now," Sarah insisted, grabbing my arm. But I was rooted to the spot, staring at the tree. The laughter transformed into something darker, a cacophony of voices rising from the depths of the forest. "They need help," I murmured, my heart aching for the children who had vanished, for Jamie and the others who had been lost to time. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, and I felt a cold sweat break out across my back. It was a young girl, her hair flowing like a shadow behind her, her eyes wide and pleading. "Help us?" she whispered, her voice a chilling echo that sent shivers down my spine. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking. I'm trapped," she said, her gaze flickering between Sarah and me. "Please, you have to help us." I looked at Sarah, and in her eyes, I saw the reflection of my own fear. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising wind. "We have to find a way to free her," I said, my heart pounding. "She's one of them. She can show us the way." But as I reached out toward the girl, the clearing suddenly darkened, and the laughter turned into a wail, a cry of anguish that pierced through the air. My instincts screamed at me to run, but something compelled me to stay. The girl's eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a surge of determination. "Please, don't leave us," she begged, her voice fading as the shadows closed in around her. "Wait," I shouted, but it was too late. The girl vanished into the darkness, leaving only the echo of her plea behind. A heavy silence followed, and I felt the weight of despair pressing down on my chest. The laughter was gone, replaced by an uneasy stillness that settled over the clearing. "Lucas, we need to go. Now," Sarah insisted, pulling me back. I hesitated, torn between the desire to uncover the truth and the instinct to flee. But as I looked around at the remnants of the past, I knew we couldn't abandon them. "Not now." "Okay," I finally said, my voice steadying, "but we have to promise to come back. We have to help them." Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We will, together." As we turned to leave, I took one last look. It was a chilly evening when Sarah and I made our way back to the heart of Milltown after our unsettling discoveries in the woods. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to dance along the cobbled streets. The weight of our findings felt heavy in the air, and the silence around us was palpable, almost as if the town itself was holding its breath. "Do you really think we should confront Dona Elvira?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her brow was furrowed with concern, and I could tell she shared my unease about the secrets we were about to unearth. "I don't think we have a choice," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "We need to know more about that party, about Jamie. If anyone knows what happened, it's her." As we approached the small antique shop where Dona Elvira spent most of her days, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. The bell above the door jingled as we entered, and the familiar scent of old wood and dust enveloped us. Dona Elvira was behind the counter, her usual warm smile replaced by a look of apprehension as Ella nos vaiu. "Lucas, Sarah," she greeted, her voice tremulous. "What brings you here this evening?" "Dona Elvira, we need to talk," I said, my heart racing. "We found something in the woods. Something about the kids who disappeared, about Jamie, and the party." Her expression darkened, and I could see the walls of her heart closing up. "I told you before, some things are better left alone. The past can be a heavy burden." "But it's not just the past," Sarah interjected, her passion shining through her fear. "Don't you want to know what really happened? We can't just let these secrets fester. The town needs to heal." Dona Elvira sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world rested upon them. "You don't understand. There's a pact of silence among the townsfolk, a promise to forget, to protect our memories from the pain. It's safer that way." "Safer for whom?" I questioned, frustration boiling inside me. "What about Jamie? What about all the other children? They deserve to be remembered." She looked at us, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "The party, it was a disaster, a day when joy turned to tragedy. Many of us still bear the scars. We keep quiet to avoid reopening those wounds." "Please, Dona Elvira," I urged. "We need your help. We've seen things, uncovered things that might be connected. You have to know more than you're letting on." With a long, shuddering breath, she finally relented, her voice barely above a whisper. "All right, but you must promise me you will tread carefully. Some truths are best faced with caution." We gathered around the small table at the back of the shop, the atmosphere thick with tension. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I watched her pull out a worn, leather-bound book from beneath the counter. It looked ancient, the edges frayed and the pages yellowed with age. She placed it gently in front of me. "This is the diary of a mother who lost her child during the party," she said, her fingers trembling slightly as she traced the cover. Her name was Margaret, and she wrote everything down. Her fears, her hopes, and eventually, her despair. I opened the diary, the musty scent of old paper filling the air. The handwriting was elegant but shaky, revealing a woman who had poured her soul into every word. As I began to read, I found myself drawn into Margaret's world, a world filled with innocence, laughter, and a looming darkness that crept closer with each entry. The children were so excited for the party. I read aloud, my voice barely above a whisper. They played in the fields, their laughter ringing through the air. But there was something strange about that day, a feeling of dread that I couldn't shake off. Sarah leaned in closer, her eyes wide with intrigue. "What happened next?" she urged. The next pages revealed a chilling account of the party that was supposed to be a joyous celebration. Margaret wrote about how the kids had gathered in the woods, enchanted by the promise of games and sweets. But as the sun began to set, one by one, they started to disappear. "Disappear?" Sarah echoed, her voice trembling. "What does she mean?" I flipped to another page, my fingers shaking. She describes a shadowy figure lurking in the trees, watching them. "I called out to them, but they didn't hear me," she wrote. The laughter faded, replaced by silence. I knew something was terribly wrong. Dona Elvira's face had turned pale, and I could see the pain etched in her features. "Those children, they were never found," she said softly. "The town tried to forget, to heal, but the memories lingered like ghosts." "Is that why everyone avoids talking about it?" I asked. "Because they're too afraid to confront what happened?" "Yes," she admitted, her voice breaking. "But the truth is a heavy burden. It's easier to pretend it didn't happen than to face the reality of that day." "What if we could find out what really happened?" I proposed. "What if there's a way to bring closure to the families? To Jamie?" Dona Elvira's gaze hardened. "You need to understand, Lucas. Some truths are dangerous. People are protective of their pain. They don't want to be reminded of their losses. But how can we help if we don't know the truth?" Sarah interjected, her determination shining through. "We're not asking you to relive the pain. We just want to understand." A long silence ensued, heavy with unspoken fears. Finally, Dona Elvira nodded slowly, as if coming to a decision. If you're truly determined to pursue this, then you need to talk to the elders of the town, the ones who were there that day. They hold the key to the past. Do you think they'll talk to us? I asked, my stomach twisting with anxiety. Some may, but be prepared for resistance, she warned. They've buried their secrets deep, and they might not take kindly to outsiders digging them up. We exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between us. We had come too far to turn back now. We'll do it, I declared, my voice steady. We owe it to Jamie and the others. As we left the shop, the weight of our task loomed over us. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping into a dark abyss, one that might reveal truths better left hidden. But I also felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, we could bring some light to the shadows that haunted Milltown. Are you ready for this? Sarah asked, glancing up at me, her eyes reflecting both fear and determination. Ready or not, we'll face it together, I replied, feeling a surge of resolve. We'll find the truth, no matter how difficult it is. And with that, we set off into the unknown. The path ahead uncertain, but our purpose clear. The call of the past echoed in our minds, urging us forward, and I knew we couldn't turn back now. The laughter of children might have faded, but we were determined to bring it back to life, to uncover the secrets that had been buried for far too long. As sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Sarah and I walked back to town, our minds racing with the revelations we had uncovered. The weight of what we had learned hung heavily on my shoulders. I had never anticipated our investigation would lead us down such a dark and twisted path, one that seemed to be intertwined with the very fabric of Milltown itself. Do you think we'll really get anything out of them? I asked, glancing at Sarah. Her brow was furrowed, deep in thought, and I could tell she was weighing her response carefully. I don't know, Lucas, she replied, biting her lip. But we have to try. If there's even a chance they'll talk to us, I think it's worth it. Right? I said, trying to muster some confidence. But what if they just shove us out again? They didn't seem too keen on discussing the past. Sarah nodded, her eyes shimmering with determination. We can't let that stop us. This is bigger than us, bigger than our fears. We owe it to Jamie and the other kids. As we reached the community hall, a place that once felt welcoming now seemed ominous. The wooden structure loomed ahead, shadows dancing in the fading light. The sound of laughter and chatter drifted from within, a stark contrast to the weight of our mission. I took a deep breath, feeling my heart race as we approached the entrance. Are you ready? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, forcing a smile to mask my nerves. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. A group of older residents sat in a circle, their laughter abruptly ceasing as we entered. Their eyes turned toward us, suspicion etched in their faces. It was clear we were intruding on something personal, yet I felt an undeniable pull to learn more. Lucas, Sarah, what brings you two here? Mr. Thompson, a grizzled man with a weathered face, greeted us with a forced cheerfulness that did little to hide his wariness. We wanted to talk to you about Jamie and the kids who have gone missing, I blurted out, my voice shaking slightly. A murmur rippled through the group, and I could feel the air grow colder. It was as if I had uttered a forbidden name, a ghost that lingered in the corners of their memories. Now, kids, Mrs. Henderson interjected, her voice sharp as a knife. It's best to leave the past buried. Those are old wounds that don't need reopening. But we're trying to understand, Sarah said, her voice strong. There are so many unanswered questions, and we believe there's a connection between Jamie and the other disappearances. We need to know what happened. Connection. Mr. Thompson's eyes narrowed, his brow furrowing deeper. You young ones think you can just dig up old stories like they're some kind of treasure? You don't know what you're getting into. Maybe we don't, I said, feeling the heat of anger rise within me. But that doesn't mean we can't try. You can't just ignore it forever. A heavy silence fell upon the room. The residents exchanged furtive glances, and I could see the fear etched on their faces. Was it fear of the past, or fear of us uncovering the truth? "Listen, you two," Mrs. Henderson said, her voice low and grave. "What happened back then? It's not something we talk about. It's a pact we made to protect our memories, to protect ourselves." "Pact?" I echoed, confusion creeping into my voice. "What do you mean?" "Things happened at that party. Terrible things," Mr. Thompson said, his gaze turning distant, lost in a memory that clearly haunted him. "Children went missing, and the town was never the same. Some of us lost our own, and we vowed to keep that pain away from the next generation." "But that's not fair," Sarah exclaimed, her frustration evident. "You're just passing on the fear. We deserve to know what happened. Fear keeps us safe," Mrs. Henderson retorted, her tone icy. "You want to dig up pain? You want to open that door? You don't know what you're asking for." I could feel the tension in the air thickening, like a storm about to break. "But what about Jamie? What about the other kids? They deserve justice, not silence." At that, the room erupted into chaos. Voices raised, people started shouting over one another. The anger and fear were palpable, swirling around us like a whirlwind. "Enough!" Mr. Thompson shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The noise died down, but the tension remained. "You think you can just waltz in here and demand answers? This isn't a game. There are things in this town that are better left hidden." "Maybe," I said, my voice steady now, "but we can't keep living in the shadows of the past. If there's a chance we can help Jamie and bring closure to these families, then we have to try." Sarah reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly, and I felt a surge of resolve. "We're not going to stop. We'll find out what happened, with or without your help." The old residents exchanged glances that spoke volumes. They were scared, yes, but there was something else. Something that hinted at a flicker of hope buried deep within them. "Fine," Mr. Thompson finally said, his voice low and resigned. "You want to know? You're going to have to dig deep. But be warned, what you find may shake you to your core." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "Just be careful," he replied, looking away as if he couldn't bear to meet our eyes. "There are some stories that are meant to stay buried. The more you uncover, the more danger you invite." "So, you know something?" Sarah pressed, her curiosity piqued. "You have to tell us." The group fell silent again, the weight of Mr. Thompson's words heavy in the air. "Listen," Mrs. Henderson said finally, her voice softer now. "The anniversary of that party is coming up soon. Some of us gather to remember, to honor those we lost. If you want to understand, maybe you should join us. But you can't come in with your heart set on revenge or anger. You need to come with an open mind." "What do you mean, honor?" I asked, confused. "Those of us who lost children, we remember them. We share stories, sometimes even light candles. We do it to keep their memory alive, but it's also our way of coping," she explained. "It's not something we take lightly." I glanced at Sarah, who was biting her lip thoughtfully. "We would like that," she said finally. "We want to remember them too." "All right then," Mr. Thompson said, his features softening slightly. "If you truly wish to understand, we'll see you there. But remember, this isn't just a story. It's our lives." As we turned to leave, I felt a mixture of dread and excitement swirling within me. We were stepping into something much larger than ourselves, and I knew we had to be prepared for whatever lay ahead. "Lucas," Sarah said quietly as we stepped outside, "do you think we did the right thing?" "I hope so," I replied, looking up at the darkening sky. "But the truth is, I'm scared. What if we uncover something we can't handle?" "We'll handle it together," she assured me, her grip tightening around my hand. "No matter what happens, we're in this together." As we walked away, the town loomed around us, filled with shadows and secrets. The path ahead was uncertain, but we were determined to seek the truth, no matter the cost. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting a silvery glow through my bedroom window. I tossed and turned, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. The laughter I had heard earlier, that haunting echo of a child's joy, lingered in my mind like a melody I couldn't quite remember. Tonight, it twisted and turned, weaving itself into the fabric of my dreams. As I drifted into sleep, I found myself standing in a vibrant backyard decorated with colorful balloons and streamers. Children were running around, their faces aglow with excitement, their laughter ringing in harmony with the chirping of crickets. I took a deep breath, absorbing the joyful atmosphere when suddenly, a chill ran down my spine. The sun was shining bright, but a shadow lurked at the edge of my vision. Felt like something was watching. "Hey, over here!" a voice called out, pulling me back to the present. I turned to see a girl with curly hair and a bright yellow dress, her smile infectious. "Come on, let's play," she urged. I smiled back, feeling an inexplicable connection to her, like we were old friends. But just as I was about to join her, a dark figure loomed behind her, shrouded in shadows. My heart raced, and I tried to call out, but no sound escaped my lips. The girl turned to look behind her, and her expression shifted from joy to confusion, then to fear. "Run!" I screamed, but my voice was lost in the air. I watched helplessly as the shadow reached for her, obscuring her laughter with a dreadful silence. Suddenly, I was jolted awake, my heart pounding against my chest. The room was still, the shadows dancing eerily on the walls. I sat up, gasping for breath, the remnants of the dream clinging to me like cobwebs. I glanced at the clock, 2:45 a.m. What did it all mean? Was it just a nightmare, or was there something more? I grabbed my phone, the screen illuminating my face as I looked up the names of those who had disappeared. Jamie's name stood out among the others, the little girl whose laughter I was now haunted by. I could still hear it echoing in my mind, a sweet sound twisted by an undercurrent of sorrow. The dream had felt so real, the urgency in my voice, the fear in her eyes. I had to talk to Sarah. She would understand. I sent a quick message to her, hoping she was still awake. "Hey, can we meet at the old park in the morning? I had a dream about Jamie. I think it's important." With the message sent, I tried to calm my racing thoughts, but sleep eluded me. Instead, I let my mind wander back to the dream and what it could mean. The girl in the yellow dress. Who was she? I couldn't shake the feeling that she was connected to everything, that she was just as caught in this web of mystery as Jamie was. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, I got dressed and made my way to the park. The world outside was waking up, but I felt like I was still living in the shadows of my dream. I arrived at the park, the empty swings creaking in the breeze, the grass still damp with morning dew. I spotted Sarah sitting on a bench, her brow furrowed in thought. "Hey," I said, approaching her. "Thanks for coming." "Of course," she replied, her voice soft but laced with concern. "You sounded serious in your message. What happened?" "I had a dream about Jamie," I confessed, feeling the weight of my words. "It was so vivid. There was a party, and she was there, but something dark was lurking around. I tried to warn her, but I couldn't." Sarah's eyes widened, and she leaned in closer, her curiosity piqued. "What do you think it means?" "I don't know," I admitted, running a hand through my hair, but it felt like a warning, like something is trying to tell us something. "Maybe we need to look into that party more closely." "The one that everyone avoids talking about?" Sarah asked, her expression serious. "Yeah," I nodded. "I think we need to go to the old site. Maybe there are clues or something we missed." "Okay, let's do it," she agreed, determination lighting up her eyes. "But we need to be careful. If the townspeople are hiding something, we don't want to provoke them." We made our way toward the abandoned lot where the party had taken place. The sun was now fully risen, and the light felt almost too bright for the heavy atmosphere we were stepping into. The grass was overgrown, and remnants of the past were scattered around. Faded balloons, a broken swing, and a rusted slide that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I stopped in my tracks, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. This is it. This is where it all happened. Sarah stepped beside me, her voice barely above a whisper. It looks so empty. Yeah, I said, swallowing hard. But it feels like there's something here, like the past is still lingering. We began to search the area, moving carefully as if we were trespassing on sacred ground. I brushed aside some tall grass and found a small, ornate box half buried in the dirt. My heart raced as I pulled it out, the rusted hinges creaking as I opened it. Inside, there was a collection of old, faded photographs and a small music box. "Look at this," I said, holding it up for Sarah to see. "This music box. It's beautiful. Do you think it belonged to Jamie?" Sarah asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "I don't know," I replied, feeling a strange connection to the item. But I can't shake the feeling that it's important. As I opened the box, a soft, haunting melody began to play, filling the air with a nostalgic echo. It was a sweet tune, but there was something melancholic about it, as if it carried the weight of lost memories. I could almost hear the laughter of children mingling with the notes, but then it faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. "Do you hear that?" I asked, my heart racing. It's almost like the laughter is coming back." Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's beautiful, but also sad. I wonder if it was played at the party." "Maybe it was," I murmured, entranced by the music. "Maybe it's a connection to what happened here." We stood in silence, the melody wrapping around us like a comforting blanket. But then, the air grew heavy once more, the shadows creeping closer. I felt a chill run down my spine. "We should probably keep looking," I said, reluctantly closing the box. "Right," Sarah agreed, her voice shaky. "Let's see if there's anything else around." We continued our search, but the weight of the moment lingered. The laughter, the music, the shadows, they all seemed to intertwine, creating a tapestry of the past that was both beautiful and haunting. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the brink of something monumental, something that would finally piece together the puzzle of Jamie's disappearance. "Lucas," Sarah called, breaking me from my thoughts. "Over here." I rushed to her side as she pointed to a cluster of stones, partially hidden by underbrush. There was something etched into one of them, and as we cleared the dirt away, I could make out letters. "It looks like a name," I said, squinting at the stone. "But it's hard to read." "Let's clean it up," Sarah suggested, her hands already working to brush away the grime. As we revealed more of the stone, the name became clearer. "Emma," I read aloud, my heart skipping a beat. "Emma, like the girl from the stories. She disappeared too, didn't she?" Sarah nodded, her face pale. "Yes, she did. They say she was last seen here. Maybe this was her hiding spot." The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. What if all the children knew each other? What if they all played here, and something happened during that party that they never spoke about? "We need to connect the dots," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "If we can find out what happened to Emma and the others, we might understand what happened to Jamie." I felt a surge of determination. Let's keep digging. There has to be more here. As we continued our investigation, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. It felt like the shadows were closing in, the whispers of the past echoing around us. But we pressed on, driven by the hope that we could uncover the truth and finally bring some peace to the lost souls of Milltown. And as the sun began to set, casting an orange glow across the land, I realized that whatever darkness had taken these children, we were ready to confront it. Together, Sarah and I would unravel the mystery, piece by piece, until we could finally understand the laughter that once echoed in the park and the tragedy that had silenced it. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows as Sarah and I stepped onto the overgrown terrain where the birthday party had once taken place. The air felt heavy, almost charged, as if it were holding its breath in anticipation of our discovery. I could almost hear the laughter of children echoing through the trees, a haunting reminder of the joy that had once filled the space. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced around, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and fear. "I think so," I replied, squinting at the faded lines in the grass that might have once outlined the area where the festivities took place. This has to be it. The diary mentioned a clearing with a big oak tree. Together, we walked deeper into the field, the tall grass brushing against our legs. I could feel the weight of history pressing down on us as we moved. The distant sounds of the park faded away, replaced by an eerie silence that wrapped around us like a shroud. "Lucas, look!" Sarah suddenly exclaimed, pointing towards a cluster of bushes. "Over there." I followed her gaze and saw a small, weathered object half buried in the dirt. My heart raced as I approached. Kneeling down, I brushed away the debris and uncovered a small music box, intricately designed, though the paint had long since chipped away. It was beautiful and eerie all at once, with delicate carvings of flowers and children dancing around its edges. "I can't believe we found this," I murmured, turning the box over in my hands. "It looks like it might be from the party. Do you think it still works?" Sarah asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. I hesitated, then gently turned the small key on the side of the box. As I did, a soft melody began to play, filling the space around us with a hauntingly familiar tune. The notes floated into the air, and for a brief moment, I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me. The melody seemed to resonate with something deep within me, as if it were awakening memories I didn't even know I had. "Do you hear that?" I asked, glancing at Sarah. She had gone pale, her gaze fixed on the music box as if entranced. "Yeah," she whispered, her voice shaking slightly. It's the same tune from the diary, the one that kept coming up in those entries." I nodded, my pulse racing. This has to be connected to Jamie. Maybe it was part of the birthday celebration. As the melody continued to play, Sarah's expression shifted. Her brow furrowed in concentration. "I remember something that Dona Elvira said about the party." "What? What did she say?" I leaned in closer, desperate for any clue that could lead us to the truth. "About how the children used to play this song during their games. It was special to them. But there was something else, something about it being a signal." "A signal?" I echoed, my mind racing with possibilities. "What do you mean?" "I think..." She hesitated, biting her lip as if she were weighing the implications of her words. "I think it was a way for them to call each other, like when they wanted to meet up or go to the hiding place." My heart sank at the thought. "You mean they used this music box to summon the others?" "Maybe. Or maybe it was more than that." Just then, the melody shifted into a particularly joyful part, and I felt a chill run down my spine. It was as if the box was alive, telling a story only it could convey. "Do you think it could lead us somewhere?" I asked, my mind racing with the possibilities. Sarah glanced around, her eyes darting between the trees. "It could. Maybe if we follow the music." With a sense of determination, we decided to let the music guide us. I carefully tucked the music box under my arm, and together we began to walk, following the sound that seemed to resonate more deeply with each step we took. As we moved further into the woods, the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting an orange glow through the branches. The shadows grew longer, and an unsettling feeling crept in. It was as if the trees themselves were watching us, whispering secrets I couldn't quite hear. "Lucas, do you feel that?" Sarah said, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "Yeah," I admitted, my skin prickling. "It feels different, like we're not alone." We pressed on, the melody from the music box filling the air, its notes mingling with the rustling leaves. Suddenly, we stumbled upon a small clearing, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. "Look at this," I said, gesturing to the ground. There, scattered amongst the brush, were faded remnants of toys, dolls, marbles, and bits of broken wood. It was a graveyard of childhood memories, left behind by the very children who once played here. "This must have been their hiding place," Sarah whispered, stepping forward to inspect the items. "It's like a time capsule." I knelt down, picking up a small, cracked doll. Its glassy eyes seemed to stare back at me, and I felt a pang of sadness for the child who had once cherished it. What happened to them? I wondered aloud. Sarah knelt beside me, her fingers brushing against the remnants. They were here, Lucas. They played here, and then something went wrong. My heart raced as I placed the music box down on the ground, the melody still playing softly. Maybe they left something behind. Maybe there's a clue. As we searched the clearing, I felt an odd energy in the air, an almost palpable presence that seemed to surround us. The laughter that had echoed in my mind earlier was now replaced by a whisper, faint but clear. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt urgent, like a plea for help. "Did you hear that?" I asked, looking at Sarah with wide eyes. "Hear what?" she replied, her brow furrowing in confusion. "I don't know, it was like voices, children's voices." She shook her head, but something in her eyes told me she felt it too. "Maybe it's just the wind." "No, it's more than that," I insisted, standing up and scanning the trees around us. "It's like they're trying to tell us something." Sarah stood up beside me, her expression shifting from uncertainty to determination. "Maybe we need to connect with them. If we play the music box again, it might trigger something." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "You're right, let's try it." I picked up the music box once more and turned the key, allowing the melody to fill the clearing. As the notes floated into the air, I closed my eyes, letting the music wash over me. The world around us faded, and for a moment, it was just the melody and the memories it stirred within me. Suddenly, I felt a rush of air, and the laughter that had haunted me since I'd arrived in Milltown erupted anew, echoing around us. I opened my eyes, and to my astonishment, I saw faint images, shadows of children dancing in the clearing, their faces lit with joy. "Lucas, look!" Sarah exclaimed, pointing towards the figures. I felt a mix of fear and wonder as I observed the scene unfolding before us. "Are they real?" "I don't know," she breathed, her eyes wide in disbelief. "But they're here. They're really here." The children twirled and played, their laughter intertwining with the melody of the music box. My heart swelled with a strange mix of hope and sorrow. They were trapped, caught between worlds, and we were witnessing their last moments of joy. "We have to help them," I said, my voice steady with resolve. "We have to figure out how to set them free." Sarah nodded, her expression determined. "What if we can find out what happened to them? Maybe that's the key." With that thought in mind, we watched the shadows dance, searching for clues in their movements, hoping that somehow we could uncover the mystery that had bound them to this place. As the melody played on, I felt an undeniable connection to these lost souls, a bond forged in the shared experience of childhood wonder and tragedy. The music began to fade, and the laughter of the children grew softer, their figures blurring as if they were being pulled back into the ether. "No, wait!" I shouted, feeling a desperate need to hold on to this moment. "We need to understand. Please, tell us." But it was too late. The shadows evaporated, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves in their wake. We were left standing in the clearing, the music box silent in my hands, the melody forever etched in our memories. "What just happened?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "I don't know," I replied, feeling a mix of awe and despair. "But I think we just witnessed something incredible. They were here, Sarah. They were real." She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And we need to find a way to help them. We can't leave them like this." I nodded, determination solidifying within me. "We won't. We'll find the truth behind their disappearance. We owe it." As days turned into weeks, my thoughts became a swirling storm of unanswered questions and haunting echoes of laughter that seemed to follow me everywhere. The more I delved into the mystery of Jamie's disappearance, the more I felt the weight of the town's shadowy past pressing down on my shoulders. I could no longer ignore the undeniable connection between the riser of Jamie and the hidden secrets buried deep within Milltown. And now, it was time to confront the only person who might have the answers I desperately sought, Dona Elvira. I took a deep breath, the sun beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the streets as I made my way to her antique shop. The familiar chime of the doorbell rang out as I entered, a a sound that signaled both comfort and trepidation. The scent of aged wood and dust lingered in the air, and I felt a shiver run down my spine as I glanced around at the countless relics from the past that filled the space. "Lucas," Dona Elvira's voice, soft yet firm, greeted me. She emerged from behind a stack of boxes, her silver hair framing her face like a halo. Her eyes, wise and knowing, seemed to assess my very soul. "What brings you here today, Dona Elvira?" I began, my voice steady but my heart racing. "I found something important." I reached into my backpack and pulled out the ornate music box I had discovered at the site of the old birthday party. It was small, intricately designed, with faded engravings that whispered stories of joy and sorrow. Her eyes widened as I placed the box on the counter between us. "Where did you find this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was at the old party grounds," I replied, watching her reaction closely. "I think it might be connected to Jamie's disappearance." Dona Elvira's expression shifted, a mix of nostalgia and pain flashing across her features. That day, it was a day that changed everything. Her voice trembled, and I could see a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Please, I need to understand," I urged, leaning in closer. "What happened at that party? Why does everyone seem so afraid to talk about it?" She hesitated, glancing toward the door as if ensuring we were truly alone. "There are things, Lucas, that are better left buried. The past has a way of haunting those who dare to unearth it." I felt a surge of frustration. "But someone has to know the truth. Jamie deserves that, and so do all the other children who disappeared." "Do you really think you can handle the truth?" Dona Elvira challenged, her gaze piercing into mine. "Sometimes, the truth is more painful than ignorance. I have to know," I insisted, my determination unwavering. "I owe it to Jamie and to those who are still lost." With a heavy sigh, Dona Elvira finally relented. "Very well, but you must promise me that you will approach this with caution. The past is a powerful force." I nodded, my heart pounding in anticipation. "I promise." She took a deep breath and began to recount the events leading up to that fateful day. "Many years ago, Milltown was a different place. The children were free to roam, to play without fear. We held a grand birthday party at the old park, a celebration filled with laughter and joy. But that joy turned to horror when children began to disappear." "Disappear?" I echoed, the weight of her words sinking in. "What do you mean?" "Some said they were taken by a dark presence," she continued, her voice trembling. "Others believed they wandered off into the woods, never to return. But the truth is, no one truly knows what happened that day. The town collectively decided to forget, to move on as if nothing had ever happened." "Why would they do that?" I asked, bewildered. "How could they just pretend? What about the families of those children?" "Fear," she replied simply. "Fear of the unknown. Fear of confronting the darkness that lurked within our community. It was easier to silence the memories than to face the reality of loss." I felt a chill run down my spine. "And what about you? What role did you play in all of this?" Her expression turned somber, and she leaned closer. "I was there, Lucas. I was one of the mothers. My daughter was among those who vanished that day." My heart sank as I processed her words. "I'm so sorry," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I had no idea. It's a burden I carry, a wound that never heals," she admitted, tears glistening in her eyes. "I made a pact, one that I believed would protect the remaining children. But it came at a great cost." "What kind of pact?" I pressed, desperate to understand. "What did you do?" "I promised to keep the memories alive, to guard the secrets of our past," she explained, her voice a mere whisper. "But in doing so, I lost myself. I became a guardian of those lost souls, forever tied to their fate." I felt a shiver course through me. "So you're saying the laughter we hear, the laughter I've been following, is tied to you?" Dona Elvira nodded slowly. "Yes, when I made the pact, I became their protector, their link to this world. I hear their laughter, their cries for help, but I can't free them from their torment. I'm bound by my promise. A wave of realization crashed over me, and I took a step back, my mind racing. But we can help them. We can find a way to set them free. It's not that simple, she urged, shaking her head. The darkness that took those children is still here, lurking in the shadows. It won't let them go easily. But what if we confront it? I suggested, an idea forming in my mind. What if we gather the remaining townspeople? We can break the silence together. We can face whatever it is that's holding them captive. Dona Elvira looked at me, a mixture of fear and hope in her eyes. You're brave, Lucas, but bravery alone may not be enough. The town has buried its past for a reason. There are those who would do anything to protect their secrets. I don't care, I declared, my voice rising with conviction. If we stand together, we can break the cycle. We can give those children a voice again. She studied me for a moment, and I could see the conflict in her expression. Perhaps it's time for the truth to come to light. But you must be prepared for the consequences. I am, I replied firmly. I won't back down. Jamie deserves to be found, and so do all the others. With a heavy heart, Dona Elvira reached out and touched the music box. This box holds a piece of the past, a link to those who were lost. If you choose to confront the darkness, take this with you. It may help you understand. I took the music box gently, feeling the cool metal beneath my fingers. Thank you, Dona Elvira. I won't let you down. As I turned to leave, she called out, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. Remember, Lucas, the past is not just a memory. It's alive and it can fight back. Be cautious and trust your instincts. I nodded, determination surging through me as I stepped out of her shop and into the cool evening air. The weight of the music box felt heavy in my hands, but it was nothing compared to the burden of truth I was now ready to face. My mind raced with possibilities as I made my way home. I had to gather Sarah and share everything I had learned. Together, we would confront the townspeople. Together, we would uncover the truth behind Jamie's laughter and the terrible events that had haunted Milltown for far too long. As I walked through the streets, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced eerily along the pavement. The laughter echoed in my mind, a haunting melody that fueled my resolve. I could feel the eyes of the town upon me, the weight of their silence pressing down like a shroud. But I wouldn't be silenced. Not anymore. The sun was setting over Milltown, casting long shadows across the park as Sarah and I stood near the old oak tree, clutching the small music box that had become the focal point of our investigation. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. We had uncovered so many pieces of this twisted puzzle, but now it was time to confront the heart of the mystery. Are you ready for this? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes glimmered with both fear and determination, mirroring my own feelings. I don't know if I'll ever be ready, I replied, my fingers trembling slightly as they brushed over the intricate carvings of the music box. But we have to do it. We owe it to Jamie and all the other kids. We exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. Fear, resolve, and an understanding that we were about to tread into unknown territory. The park, which had once felt like a mundane backdrop to our lives, now seemed steeped in an aura of mystery and unfulfilled destinies. With a deep breath, I wound the key on the music box, and as the familiar melody began to play, I felt a surge of emotion wash over me. The notes floated into the air, weaving between the trees and settling around us like a gentle, yet haunting, embrace. Listen, I said, closing my eyes, letting the music wrap around me. It was then that I heard it, a soft, distant laughter that seemed to rise and fall in harmony with the tune. My heart raced. Do you hear that? Sarah nodded, her expression a mix of awe and fear. It's her. It's Jamie. As the music continued, I glanced around, half expecting to see the ghostly figure of a little girl dancing in the fading light. But instead, it was as if the laughter was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I turned my gaze back to the music box, feeling a strange connection to the melodies it produced. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Dona Elvira, her frail form illuminated by the soft glow of the setting sun. She looked more fragile than I remembered, her face etched with worry and sorrow. "What have you done?" she asked, her voice trembling as she approached us. "We found the music box," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the overwhelming emotions swirling within me. "We thought it might help us understand what happened to Jamie and the others." Her eyes widened as she took a step back, fear flashing across her features. "You shouldn't have played that. You don't know what you're awakening." "What do you mean?" Sarah inquired, stepping closer to Dona Elvira, her curiosity piqued. "We want to help. We want to know the truth." Dona Elvira's gaze fell to the ground, and for a moment, she seemed lost in her memories. "The music box belonged to my daughter," she whispered, her voice cracking. "She was at that party. The same party where Jamie disappeared." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. I glanced at Sarah, who was visibly shaken. "Your daughter," I echoed, struggling to process the weight of her words. "You never mentioned that." "I didn't want to burden you with my past," she replied, her voice heavy with regret. "But I made a pact to protect the souls of those children. They were lost, and I thought I could keep them safe." I felt a chill run down my spine. "A pact? What do you mean?" Dona Elvira stepped closer, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "When the tragedy struck, I was devastated. I couldn't bear to lose my daughter, so I sought help from the spirits. I thought I could save them, but instead, I became trapped in this cycle of grief." "Trapped?" Sarah echoed, her brows knitting together in confusion. "What do you mean?" "The laughter you hear," Dona Elvira said, her voice now a whisper. "It's not just Jamie's, it's mine too. I became a guardian of their souls. But at what cost? I lost my own life in the process. My heart ached for her. I could see the pain etched into her features, the burden of her choices weighing heavily on her shoulders. "You didn't mean for this to happen," I said gently. "You were trying to protect them, but I've kept them from moving on," she replied, her voice thick with sorrow. "I thought I was helping, but I only created more suffering. Their laughter, it's a reminder of what I lost. I've been their prison rather than their savior." The melody from the music box continued to play, and I felt a shift in the air around us. The laughter echoed louder, swirling like a tempest, as if the spirits were responding to Dona Elvira's confession. "Maybe it's time to set them free," I suggested, my mind racing with possibilities. "If we can break the cycle, you could finally let them go." Dona Elvira looked at me with a mixture of hope and fear. "But at what cost? What if they don't want to leave? What if I lose them forever?" Sarah placed a hand on Dona Elvira's shoulder. "They deserve to be at peace, just like you do. You can't keep holding on to them like this." As the music continued, I could feel the air buzzing with energy. "Maybe the music box can help us," I said, an idea forming in my mind. "If we play the melody and speak their names, it might guide them home." Dona Elvira hesitated, her hand reaching out to touch the music box. "But I can't bear to lose them again." "You won't lose them," I assured her. "You'll be setting them free. You'll be giving them the peace they deserve." With a shaky breath, Dona Elvira nodded. "All right, let's try." We gathered in a small circle, the music box resting between us like a fragile bridge between two worlds. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "We'll call out to them together," I said, glancing at Sarah. She gave me a determined nod. "On the count of 3, I said, my heart pounding. 1, 2, 3. "Jamie!" we shouted in unison, our voices intertwining with the melody. "Lucy! Michael! Sam!" Dona Elvira's voice trembled, but was filled with an urgency that reverberated through the park. The laughter intensified, echoing around us as if the very spirits of the children were responding to our call. I could feel the air crackling, the energy shifting, and for a moment, the world felt suspended in time. "Let them go, Dona Elvira," I urged, my voice rising above the crescendo. Set them free. With tears streaming down her face, Dona Elvira closed her eyes and nodded. I release you. I love you, my child. Go and find your peace. As the final notes of the melody faded into the air, a brilliant light enveloped us, swirling with hues of gold and silver. The laughter transformed into a chorus of joyous giggles, lifting the heaviness that had lingered for so long. In that moment, I felt a sense of release, a weight lifting from my shoulders as if the spirits were finally free. The laughter echoed one last time before dissolving into the shimmering light, leaving only silence in its wake. Dona Elvira collapsed to her knees, sobbing openly as the realization of what had just happened washed over her. I did it. I let them go, she whispered, a mix of relief and sorrow in her voice. I knelt beside her, placing a comforting hand on her back. You did the right thing, I reassured her. They're finally at peace. Sarah joined us, wrapping her arms around Dona Elvira in a supportive embrace. You can find peace too, Elvira. It's not too late. As the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the park in twilight, I felt a profound sense of closure. We had unraveled the mystery that had haunted Milltown for so long, and in doing so, had freed not just the spirits of the children, but also Dona Elvira from her own sorrow. In that moment, I realized the power of love and memory, how they can bind us but also set us free. We may never forget the laughter of those we've lost, but it's the love we carry forward that ultimately defines us. And as we stood together in the park, I knew that we had not only uncovered the truth, but had also woven a new story, one of healing, hope, and the everlasting bonds of love.